The message arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters on a quiet morning. Ambassador of the Empire was drinking his third cup of stimulant tea when his assistant rushed into his office. The young's four eyes were wide with shock. His blue skin had turned pale. Ambassador, Earth has sent an official communication, the assistant said. His voice was shaking. Put down his cup slowly. In 300 years of galactic politics, he had learned that humans were unpredictable creatures. They were the youngest species in the council. They had only joined 50 years ago. Most senior races still treated them like children who had accidentally found their way into an adult meeting. What do they want now? More trade routes? Another complaint about the mining regulations? Asked with a tired sigh. The assistant handed him the tablet, read the message once. Then he read it again. His four eyes blinked in confusion. The words were simple and clear, but his mind refused to accept them. "This cannot be real," he whispered. The message was short. It said that the United Earth government was officially withdrawing from the Galactic Council. All diplomatic ties were being cut. All trade agreements were canceled. All joint military operations were terminated. Earth was closing its borders to all alien species. No exceptions would be made. Within 1 hour, every species in the known universe had received the same message. Within 2 hours, the Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting. Within 3 hours, panic had begun to spread like fire through dry grass. High Counselor stood at the center of the great chamber. Around him sat representatives from 412 different species. They were all talking at once. Some were shouting. Some were crying. The noise was deafening. "Silence!" bellowed. His massive form towered over the others. As he stood 12 feet tall and weighed over 1,000 pounds, his voice could shake walls. The chamber fell quiet. "I do not understand this reaction," said. He looked around at the frightened faces. "The humans are a minor species. They control only one star system. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Why does their departure cause such concern?" Ambassador of the collective rose to speak. She was an ancient being. Her crystalline body had existed for over 10,000 years. When she spoke, others listened. "High Counselor, you are new to your position," said. Her voice was soft but carried clearly. "You were appointed only 30 years ago. You do not know what the universe was like before the humans came." Frowned, "Please explain." Moved to the center of the chamber. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots appeared everywhere, marking areas of conflict. Before humans joined the Council, the average number of active wars in the galaxy was 147, said. Border disputes, resource conflicts, ancient grudges that had lasted for, species that had hated each other for longer than humans had existed. She pressed a button. The red dots began to disappear, one by one. Within 10 years of humans joining the Council, that number dropped to 63. Within 20 years, it dropped to 21. Today, there are only 4 active conflicts in the entire galaxy. 4. Do you understand what that means? Shook his head slowly. How is that possible? Humans have almost no military power. They have no ancient wisdom. They are barely more than animals with starships. A harsh laugh came from across the chamber. It was Ambassador of the Dominion. They were warriors. They had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the Council. They respected only strength. You truly do not know, said. He stood up and walked toward the center. Then let me tell you a story, High Counselor. Let me tell you about the war between my people and the Federation. The chamber grew very quiet. Everyone remembered that war. It had lasted for 200 years. Billions had died. Both species had been ready to destroy each other completely. We hated continued. They hated us. We had killed their children. They had killed ours. There was no way to make peace. Any leader who suggested peace would be executed by their own people. The war was going to continue until one species was completely dead. He paused and closed his eyes, remembering. Then a human came to our world, a single human, a young woman named Sarah. She was not a diplomat, she was not a soldier, she was a teacher. She asked permission to open a school for our children. Several ambassadors nodded. They knew this story. We laughed at her. We told her our children needed to learn war, not whatever foolish things humans taught. But she was persistent. She kept coming back. Eventually, our emperor agreed to let her open one small school just to make her go away. His voice grew softer. Within 5 years, children from her school were asking questions. Why do we hate them? What did they do to us? When we told them the history, they asked more questions. Did they have children too? Did those children deserve to die for something their ancestors did? These were questions we had never allowed ourselves to ask. He looked around the chamber. Those children grew up. They became leaders. They demanded peace. And when the Federation sent their own human teacher and their children asked the same questions, peace became possible. Not because anyone forced us, but because humans somehow made us want it. High Counselor sat down heavily. His mind was struggling to process this information. But how, he asked, what do humans do that we cannot? Ambassador spoke again. They see us differently than we see ourselves. When a looks at a, we see an enemy. When a looks at a, they see prey. But when a human looks at any of us, they see a person. They see potential. They see a friend they have not made yet. That is foolishness, said. That is naive thinking. Perhaps, agreed. But it works. Human doctors serve on every medical station in the galaxy. Not because they are the best doctors, but because they treat every patient the same. Human mediators settle disputes between species that have hated each other for. Human teachers educate children on worlds where education was forbidden. Human artists create works that make ancient enemies weep together. Another ambassador stood up. It was the representative from the Merchant Coalition. His species controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. You speak of emotions and culture, he said. Let me speak of economics. 40% of all galactic trade now flows through human-designed systems, not because human technology is superior. It is not, but because humans are the only species that everyone trusts to be fair. He pulled up financial charts. Before humans, trade between rival species was almost impossible. They would not trust merchants. They would not trust traders. Everyone cheated everyone. But humans created trading posts where all species were treated equally. They created financial systems that no one could manipulate. They made themselves the neutral ground that everyone needed. More ambassadors began to speak. Each one had a story. Each story showed how humans had woven themselves into the fabric of galactic civilization. They spoke of human explorers who mapped dangerous regions of space, sharing their findings freely with everyone. They spoke of human engineers who designed ships that any species could use, asking for nothing in return. They spoke of human philosophers who had created the first universal ethical framework that all species could agree upon. High Counselor raised his hands for silence. His face was pale. He finally understood. The humans are leaving because of how we have treated them, he said slowly. We have taken everything they offered. We have benefited from their work, and we have given them nothing but disrespect in return. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew it was true. For 50 years, humans had been mocked. They were called primitives. They were called children. Their representatives were given the worst seats at council meetings. Their proposals were ignored. Their complaints were dismissed. They were treated as servants, not as equals. And they had accepted it. They had continued working. They had continued helping. They had continued giving. Until now. Ambassador spoke one final time. I received a private message from the human ambassador before he left. He said that humans came to the stars hopping to find friends. They found clients instead. They found species who would take but never give. They found a universe that saw kindness as weakness. and so they have decided to go home. The weight of those words filled the chamber. What happens now? Someone asked. No one knew how to answer, but everyone knew that without human mediators, old wars would restart. Without human traders, economies would collapse. Without human doctors and teachers and engineers, 1,000 systems that depended on them would fail. The galaxy had built its prosperity on human kindness, and now that kindness was gone. High Counselor stood up. His voice was heavy with regret. We must send a delegation to Earth. We must apologize. We must beg them to return. They will not accept our apology, said. They gave us 50 years to change. We did not. Why would they believe us now? Had no answer. Across the galaxy, the panic continued to grow. Species that had been at peace for decades began to eye each other with suspicion. Trade routes started to close. Medical stations lost their human staff and could not function. Schools shut down. Peace treaties began to crumble. And on Earth, 8 billion humans looked up at the stars they had tried so hard to befriend. They felt sadness. They felt disappointment, but they did not feel regret. They had offered the universe their hand in friendship. The universe had slapped it away. Now the universe would learn what it had lost. The humans would survive. They always did. They would build and grow and thrive alone if necessary. But the rest of the galaxy, the species who had mocked them and used them and never once said thank you, they would have to learn to survive without human hearts to guide them. And that, perhaps, was the hardest lesson of all. The stars continued to shine, cold and distant. The universe continued to turn, but something essential had been broken. And everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same again.